So, Craig, we've seen everything that's been going on in the news in London. It's also been the case here in Birmingham as well, and with across the UK major cities. First of all, what's your take on everything?
I think we're in a place of despair. I think many people in the society or within the communities or communities as a whole feel that we've failed a generation, whereas young people are behaving in ways in which we haven't seen before. Now, the issue of violence has always been embedded in the society. We live in a violent society. You look at movies, you look at film production companies, you look at gaming, you look at the things on social media platforms are essentially quite violent. So our children are violent products of that type of environment. But whereas the argument in which many people have said of how we failed young people, we look at youth services. Where are they? Where are youth centres? There are some youth centres, but if we go back 10 years ago, there was a lot of youth centres and there was a lot of youth engagement. Something happened when David Cameron, and the recession and the cuts and the dismantlement of youth services, and now youth services now are doing multiple roles in terms of engaging young people and not concentrating like we used to do historically and engaging a series of issues that are affecting young people. That's all gone now. We're looking at the rise of mental health. Young people are becoming more anxious, more depressed. PSD. We're talking about trauma, multiple traumas experiencing from young people. We're talking about young people being excluded at an alarming rate, ending up in pupil referral units. And when we look at the correlation between the pupil referral unit or the provision of young people that are kicked out of mainstream schools and the prison pipeline is very close. And we also look at, deprivation. We look at, poor housing conditions. We look at, the environments in which individuals live. You're talking about estates. You're talking about places, one way in, one way out type of environments. You're looking at, issues of lack of investments within young people or the community as a whole. We're looking at issues of gentrification. We're looking at, lack of, corporate investment in terms of communities. But then yet what we do is we have a lot of blame. So we blame young people for the behaviours in which they display when they're products of their environment. Now, yes, young people are supposed to hold accountability for the things that they do, but we can't ignore all of the surrounding factors that are affecting them every single day. I think one of the things that we don't talk about enough is the concept of fear. Now, I'm not saying that fear is the main problem, but for me, fear is a major issue within a society. If I was 14 years old right now, I'd probably carry a knife. Why? Not because I'm a gang member, not because I want to hurt people, because every single day I hear about a body dropping. Every single day I hear about someone being attacked. Every single day I hear about if I go to a certain area or I go to a particular party or I'm around certain people or I socialize around certain places, potentially something can happen to me. And as we're seeing on social media and as we're seeing on the many platforms that we see, your Facebooks, your Instagrams and your Twitter, we're seeing young people getting knocked out. We're seeing young people get beat up. We're seeing young people, getting stabbed. And we're seeing the aftermath of someone being stabbed. That's bound to have a detrimental effect on a young person's mind when they're watching that. So I'll go back to my point. If I was 14 years old right now in this country, I'd probably have a knife. So we need to start addressing things like fear. We need to start looking at, well, what is it that causes young people to behave in the ways that they do? Because for me, survival, we have to really look at what survival actually looks like within the UK. We talk about, young people and the things that they do and, the way that they express themselves on media platforms that we don't agree with because it's negative. But why don't we focus more about the psychology in which happening or what's happening to our young people and how it's happening to our young people that enables them to display certain behaviours in those types of ways? We're talking about schools that fail our young people. We're talking about schools that inadequately don't allow or enable our young people to be self-sustaining, that when they leave that they can't do something for themselves and they're kind of looking for a handout. This is not the fault of young people. So we're looking at a societal issue that is ingrained by political, systematic, historical influences that has impacted in terms of our young people. And then we also have to also include things like, class, race, gender, because when we talk about these issues of violence, let's be real, the people that are in the red, what I would say, in terms of these issues is predominantly young black males. But society suggests that it's only an issue for young black males. Now, when you actually look at the statistics, which is what I'm supposed to do as a criminologist, it shows a very different picture. It shows different communities, different people from different cultures and aspects impacted by these particular issues. But the media would like us to believe that it's only one particular issue or one particular group of people that are affected by those particular issues. And I think that when we talk about these things, we need to start having more honest conversations about what that reality is. So moving forward, when we're talking about these issues, we need to stop pointing the finger and start pointing the finger back at ourselves. You know, it's easy to say, you know, young people shouldn't carry knives. It's easy to say a young person shouldn't sell drugs. It's easy to say you shouldn't hang around with A, B, and C. It's easy to say you're supposed to come out of school with GCSEs. But if I'm scared to go to school, if I feel that my parents are struggling and there's no other way in putting food on the table, if I feel that, you know what, there's a possibility that I might not make it by the end of today, school means nothing. Education means nothing. The activities in which you put in front of me means nothing. So we need to start engaging with survival and understanding what survival looks like. So that means the police have to do something, the government need to do something, communities need to do something, faith leaders need to do something, households need to do something. And what we shouldn't be doing is pointing the finger at everybody else and saying it's the government to blame or it's the community to blame. Everybody has a role to play within this. So even me as a frontline worker, as a father and as a member of the community, I have a role to play. So whether that is education, whether that is outreach work, whether that is helping and supporting parents to the best way possible, whether that is allowing young people that do positive, that don't get voices heard in a way in which the negative voices get projected in our community, to allow them and create spaces in order for them to hear. So I'm not the individual that says to them, you should just have faith. I'm not the one that says, you know what, you should just stop rolling with those people. I'm not the one that says, you know what, you're supposed to just go to school, when realizing how deep and scary it is for any teenager growing up in that society. People are getting stabbed in McDonald's. People are getting stabbed on the bus. People are getting stabbed in places now in which would, when I was growing up, places where you would chill. So where do young people go? And then just telling young people that they're supposed to just go to the police, when we know that there's a lack of trust within community and the police, when we know that there's been amount of issues around police brutality amongst the police and young people and communities and specific communities as a whole, and it's expecting young people to go to the police. So where is the service that are out there to say to a young person that if you want to talk about, if you want to engage, if you want advice, who do you go to? Where do young people go to? So we see this phenomenon now where individuals now that talk to the police, for example, their statements get put on Instagram. So now it's like, whoa, that individual can't come into the community. So it's kind of a hypocritical society that we're essentially living in. Now, I'm not saying that one way and one solution is the way, but what I'm saying is there are things that we need to start looking at and having new conversations and also having honest conversations. There are people in our community that talk about this concept of it takes a village to raise our child. I totally agree. But it also takes villages to kill children. And we got people that are ill-qualified, not qualified, have zero knowledge about this particular incident or issues, but everybody's got something to say. People are stuck in 1995 with their models, theories and interventions, and we're now in 2018. So what I'm saying is we need to get up to the time. We need to know what we're doing, and we need to know how and why young people behave in a way in which they do, and stop thinking from our 1997, 2001 perspective on things and then trying to project that in 2018. Social media is a major issue amongst our young people. Mental health is a major issue amongst our young people. Entrepreneurship or the lack of entrepreneurship is a major issue within our community. Young people don't feel education is working for them. And then with all of that, they're trying to survive. So let's deal with survival, let's deal with fear before we think of the things in which we as adults think young people need, and we need to get young people a part of that intervention of understanding, well, what is it that they need in the different contexts, because London operates different to Birmingham, Birmingham operates different to Manchester, operates different to Liverpool, and also the other cities that surround them. So I think the society needs to wake up, and we need to do more. We need to engage more, and we also need the finances, resources in order to shift some of the things in what we're doing before, because I can understand the narrative of how we're failing our young people. But then when I look at that in context, even in terms of the UK, and we look at different places around the world, the UK are far, far ahead in terms of how we respond to these issues. No, we're not perfect. We have to say respect where respect is due, and there's positivity that also takes place. So there's a lot of us that are working out in the community that haven't failed young people, but as a collective, we can understand that we can do more, and we need to be working more cohesively in engaging this issue, because we are failing our young people in that aspect, and we've seen too many lives. And unfortunately, what I do predict is that there's going to be more lives lost. There's going to be more young people, unfortunately, ending up in mental health institutions. We're going to bury in more young people before we see a systematic change. And maybe we'll start seeing that when the colours of the skin of the young people that also peak in terms of behaviours, and the behaviours of certain people from different colours of skin start dying at a rapid rate, maybe we'll see a systematic response in which we want.